Right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the workshop today. Um, my name is Jacqueline Miller. I am a health educator on the employee wellness team. And today our workshop is all about burnout. And um, hopefully we can get some good ideas and things that we can do to prevent burnout and improve on that aspect. So we're going to go ahead and get started today. Just a little overview of the workshop. Some things that we're going to cover includes talking about what burnout is. And then we're going to talk about burnout versus bore out, spotting the symptoms of burnout, the roots and the risks. And then we'll talk about some prevention strategies as well as some recovery techniques that you can implement into your life starting today, wherever you're at. Okay, so understanding burnout. The WHO, the World Health Organization, they define burnout as the result of poorly managed chronic workplace stress. So burnout is directly linked to workplace stress. Burnout influences health and a person's connectedness with health services. Burnout is characterized by these three main points, and we're going to talk about those. So the first one is feelings of energy depletion or feeling exhausted. Exhaustion is considered the core characteristic of burnout. The second one in this definition is an increased mental distance from one's job, along with feelings of negativity or cynicism about work. And then the third one is a decreased professional efficacy. So this refers to feelings of diminished competence or a lack of accomplishment in one's work. So it's a perception that the work that you're putting out is no longer challenging or that it's become overwhelmingly challenging, leading to a sense of not really performing to the best of your abilities. So additionally, on top of these workplace stressors, there's other long-term personal and environmental stressors that can also impact or increase burnout. So this could be things like a major illness or family difficulties, family emergencies, and just any other persistent adversity that contributes to the feelings of exhaustion and everything that you may already be experiencing from burnout. I also wanted to clarify at the beginning that depression and other mental conditions are not the same thing as burnout. Sometimes they may seem like they're going hand in hand contributors to these overall feelings, but the important takeaway here is to understand that a mental condition like anxiety or depression will overall need different treatment than the burnout recovery and prevention techniques that we're going to be talking about today. So keep that in mind as we go throughout this as well. Okay, so when preparing for this workshop, I kept wondering what the opposite of burnout is. So we know it's best to be somewhere in the middle, but what if we were on the opposite end of the scale? So I want to take a minute to define the term bore out and the difference between bore out and burnout, as both of these terms can tend to be similar in their outcomes. So bore out. This is being so incredibly bored at work that you feel just mentally drained and just don't care anymore. And this happens when your tasks are too simple, repetitive, or they aren't really challenging your mind at all. Think of it like your brain being starved for something interesting to do during the day. And then burnout, this is when you're completely wiped out emotionally, physically, and mentally, um, because you've been under too much stress for too long. So it's like running that marathon without ever really getting to rest. And eventually you just collapse from exhaustion. So how burnout and bore out are related. They are opposites. Bore out is about having too little to do that's engaging, while burnout is about having too much to do that's stressful. But the similarities here, even though they're both opposites, both bore out and burnout can lead to similar bad outcomes. And they often start from similar situations, even if the specific cause, like a poorly managed workload or just different directions that way. So think about that too as we're going throughout this workshop, where you're at with burnout or bore out. Okay, I really like this quote. Exhaustion happens when we get stuck in emotion. And this is from a book called Burnout: The Secret to Unlocking the Stress Cycle. So this quote is referring to an analogy with tunnels. In it, it says, emotions are tunnels. If you go all the way through them, you get to the light at the end. Exhaustion happens when we get stuck in an emotion. We may get stuck simply because we're constantly being exposed to situations that activate emotion. Sometimes we get stuck because we can't find our way through, and it may be too treacherous to move through alone. We get lost and need someone else, a loving presence to help us find our way through. Many of us are trapped in this way. So if you do feel like you're exhausted, maybe you're stuck in the middle of an emotion and you need to find that light at the end of the tunnel. Emotions are like stories. They have a natural flow, a beginning, a middle, and an end. So many of us grow up believing that if we simply fix the problem that triggered a stressful emotion, the emotion itself will just disappear. However, in our modern world, there's often a disconnect between addressing an issue and truly processing the feelings it brings up. You have to do something that signals to your body that you are safe, or else you'll stay in this state where your hormones are degrading and you're never shifting into relaxation. It affects your digestive system, your immune system, cardiovascular, musculoskeletal, reproductive system. It affects your whole body. And your brain and body are not getting the connection to signal that they're safe. So work through the whole emotion to get through the tunnel. And we'll talk about some more examples of things that might be beneficial to try to work through emotions, because the core of burnout with that exhaustion comes from emotions as well. So let's talk about some of the subtle and gradual signs. Burnout doesn't usually hit like a ton of bricks. It's more like that slow, leaky faucet. And sometimes slow leaks are hard to detect at first. So you might just notice little things changing with your mind, how you feel, how you think, and your body might react as well. Exhaustion, like we've talked about. But a lot of people don't immediately get that these shifts in our mind and body are tied to our energy and our overall well-being, and they're slowly draining away. So it's not something that happens all at once. It's something that we need to check in with ourselves before it is a major issue or a major leak. So some typical signs of burnout include feeling drained, not feeling able to cope or able to sleep, being sad, angry, irritable, or not caring, um, using alcohol or other substances, um, and just being more likely to get sick. So, from that list, you're probably thinking, well, that sounds like a lot of things in life. So, again, it's important to check in on that slow leak to determine if workplace stress is what's contributing to these feelings of whether you're sad or if you're getting sick more often. Try to make that connection if that's where you think your overall well being is being affected by workplace stress. Okay, so the roots of burnout. Just like roots in this picture here, they run deep into the ground below the surface of the plant. Burnout can be festering and spreading and growing below the surface, deeper than you or others around you might realize. Even your best friends or family members may not see the signs either. You may not find them either. Some typical roots of burnout include a limited control over your work. So, this is when you really don't have input into how your tasks are carried out, like your schedule, assignments, or workload. Um, that can contribute to burnout. And a lack of necessary resources to do your job effectively can also worsen this issue. Um, the second one is unclear job expectations. So if you're uncertain about what your supervisor or your colleagues or those you supervise expect from you, it can be hard to feel confident in your performance. And that can lead to stress as well. Um, Interpersonal conflicts or other tensions with coworkers, feeling targeted or being micromanaged can also create a toxic work environment that heightens the stress and emotional exhaustion you might already be experiencing. And then having an imbalanced workload with too much or too little to do. Um, Again, burnout and bore out. So whether you're overwhelmed with responsibilities or just stuck in a role that really lacks that stimulation, both extremes on this scale demand significant mental energy, which can lead to that burnout and that fatigue from too much or too little to do. And then a lack of social or emotional support. So this could look like feeling isolated at work or in your personal life. Your personal life can definitely amplify the stress and reduce the resilience that you have. And then lastly, the work-life balance. We talk about this a lot. If your job consumes so much time and energy that there's very little left over for you and your personal relationships or self-care, the imbalance can be a major contributor to burnout. So, understanding the impact of heavy workloads and long hours as a major risk for burnout, this is something that many people experience, and um, it impacts overall well being. So, this often goes beyond just having a lot to do, it's about the relentless pressure to perform or the constant rush against deadlines or too many deadlines, um, and the feeling that there are not enough hours in the day to complete everything. Um, the cumulative effect of these extended periods of work can lead to chronic fatigue and those increased stress levels. So it's it's going to create feelings of being overwhelmed. And this isn't just about physical tiredness, but it's also mental and emotional. And managing a workload with extended hours can diminish your job satisfaction and overall quality of life. Another risk is finding a work-life balance again that really works with you. So, the concept of work-life balance often feels unattainable for many people. Um, when work spills over into your personal time, it really erodes the boundaries essential for that time that you need to rest and maintain relationships. So, um, the constant demands of a job can make it difficult to disconnect. And there are times when you have to be on call with certain jobs and things like of that nature. But when you do step away from the office, try to find a balance where you can really help those personal interests and family relationships thrive. So, um, and we'll talk more about some burnout prevention techniques with work life balance. The next risk is just working in a profession like a helping profession. So, for those in helping professions, this is things like healthcare or education or social work. There are a lot of times more challenges with the heavy workloads of the longer hours and the emotional labor involved with it as well. So, the helping jobs typically demand a significant amount of giving yourself emotionally to others, both in terms of energy and emotion. So, caregivers, nurses, teachers, therapists, they often bear witness to suffering and have to navigate the complex emotional situations of others and provide constant support. Um, and that can be profoundly rewarding to be in a helping profession, but also incredibly draining if there aren't techniques put into place to protect yourself with boundaries. Um, so try to define those lines between your professional duty and personal emotional states, just to detach and recharge when not at work. Um, so the last one is feeling little or no control over one's work environment. And perhaps one of the most difficult aspects of a demanding work environment is the feeling of having a total lack of control over work. The lack of autonomy can stem from a lot of different factors, of course, depending on the job role, such as this could be like a rigid organizational structure or just unrealistic expectations from management. And sometimes it looks like a constant incoming flux of urgent tasks that really leave no room for proactive planning and pushes other tasks to the back burner. So when you feel like a cog in the wheel, in the machine, unable to influence your tasks or your personal schedule at work, um, it can lead to feelings of helplessness and frustration. So this lack of control can stifle the creativity that we are normally able to express in our work, and it reduces motivation. It can again contribute to job stress and dissatisfaction and burnout. So understanding how these roots of burnout and risks are interconnected is the first step towards addressing them. And the first thing that I want to give you as a tool to prevent burnout or just to initiate today is creating an end of day ritual. So, the end of day ritual is a practice that helps you shift from work to personal time. And this can significantly reduce stress and improve your mental health and even strengthen your relationships. So, what is a shutdown ritual? It needs to be a clear signal to your mind that the workday is over. And a few key steps in this. We'll talk about the first one, which is called closing open loops. So tie up any loose ends at the end of the day. This means going through and quickly checking your inbox, your calendar, your task list. Ensure that nothing urgent slips through the cracks. And then take a moment to mentally note what needs attention the next day. You don't need a detailed plan, just a general idea of what's going to happen. And then you need to have an action that truly marks the end of workday. So this could be a symbolic action. It could be something you say out loud, like schedule, shut down, complete. Or it could be a planner and a checkbox labeled shut down, complete, something like that. These actions create a cognitive behavioral tool to help your brain disengage from work thoughts. And then the next one is overcoming rumination. So many of us struggle with our work thoughts spilling into our personal time. So having this phrase or the checkbox helps redirect our thoughts away from the work worries that we have been thinking about for the last 8 hours or so. So this allows you to disconnect from work and then move forward to enjoy personal time without the constant hum of work in your mind. So this not only helps with shutting down at the end of the day, but it helps you get back into the flow at the beginning of the next workday, boosting your productivity. And it's proven to help with mental health by creating that clear boundary between work and personal life. When we come home, we often will fall into the trap of discussing work, which can link, again, the home life with the work stress once we get home. So when you get home, strive for different conversations that don't necessarily always revolve around your job. This little shift can vastly improve your interactions with your family and friends. So, an example of this, instead of asking, "How was work?" Try sharing an interesting story or discussing topics unrelated to your job. So, this will help shift again to focusing on personal life at home. And it also enriches your personal interactions with your family or friends. So this is a powerful tool that you can initiate today to help create that end of day ritual. The next one that we're going to talk about is setting boundaries. This one is really crucial for preventing and recovering from burnout, both. It's defining what you will and won't accept in your professional and personal life. And it allows you to protect yourself, your time, and really your overall well-being. So the first idea with setting boundaries is to take some time and understand your own personal limits and your priorities or values. Before you can set more boundaries, you have to understand yourself and what you need to be healthy. So pay attention to what drains you and what energizes you. The activities, requests, or situations that consistently leave you feeling overwhelmed, resentful, exhausted. Try to define a boundary with that so that you aren't always experiencing those feelings. And then talking about values. What truly matters to you? Is it family time, personal hobbies, creative pursuits? Knowing your core values helps you to prioritize and make those decisions that align with your well-being. The next one is to know your capacity. So, really be realistic about how much you can genuinely take on without sacrificing your health or the quality of your work. It's okay to have limits and to be realistic about that. Communicate these things clearly and effectively. That's the only way to set a boundary, is to communicate the boundary itself. Be direct and concise with it without really beating around the bush. Um, so, for example, I'm super busy. Maybe I can look at that later. You could instead try, I won't be able to take on that additional task right now. I can revisit it next week if needed. So, using those I statements to frame your boundaries around your needs and feelings rather than making accusations or pushing blame. So, um, you know, it's about proactively communicating your availability and your working hours. Um, and then be consistent. Once you've set this boundary, whatever it may be, stick to it. Inconsistency can sometimes signal to others that your boundaries are possibly flexible or that they can be pushed. So find that value and then create the boundary, stick to it. And then another idea is to really define your working hours and a clear start and end time for your workday and stick to that as much as you can. Avoid checking emails or working after hours unless it is a genuine emergency or what you need to do for your job. And then turn off those notifications. You don't need to have those on your phone all the time unless, of course, you're on call. Another tool is to delegate. So prioritizing tasks, and then if something isn't urgent or important, consider delegating that if possible. And then lastly, I do want to talk about scheduling breaks. So actively schedule and take your lunch breaks and your mental health breaks or even long vacations with your paid time off. These are not luxuries, these are essential for your well-being and your productivity. So lastly, we're going to talk about recovery if you do feel that you are in a state of burnout. So you can empower yourself with some control over how you cope. So here are some strategies to help you navigate and overcome burnout if you may be in that state right now. First off, start by assessing your situation. Consider discussing your concerns with your supervisor. You might collaborate on solutions or implement changes, but really just be realistic about the objectives that you have and distinguish between those urgent priorities and the things that can wait. So if your current work environment seems unlikely to improve, it also might be beneficial to explore other opportunities that better align with your needs and your values to make sure that you're healthy. So don't hesitate to reach out to other people, your colleagues, friends, and family for support. Sharing your experiences can be helpful in coping with stress, and the sense of belonging can act as a buffer for you against burnout. I also wanted to mention that at Salt Lake County, we have the Employee Assistance Program, VEST, and they have many resources that they offer for free as a benefit to employees that can help you with whatever you need, including counseling sessions. So an idea that you can try is to engage in calming activities. So incorporate relaxing activities into your routine. And this could be yoga or just mindfulness, even simple things like taking a few deep breaths throughout the day. That can effectively release some tension. And then prioritize physical activity and sleep. So, regular exercise is a powerful tool for stress management in all areas of stress. Um, and it can provide a break from work and the thoughts about work. And then embrace mindfulness, the practice of observing your internal and external experiences can significantly enhance your ability to navigate the workplace challenges and workplace stress that you may be experiencing. And then hopefully, by being more mindful, it prepares you to respond differently the next time you are in a workplace stressful situation. But as you consider the different paths to recovery, keep an open mind and remember that seeking assistance is a sign of strength. So there are a lot of effective ways to overcome burnout and protect your health. And don't be afraid to try a few different options to get you started. That is all that I have today for the workshop. I did want to uh, put a plug in for our June program. This is our webpage with all of our events coming up. Um, Next week, we have a therapy animals event on Wednesday. So there's a lot of different things the rest of the month of June to help you improve your stress and burnout and build resilience. So um, that's all I have. Thank you so much for joining today.